All right, welcome into the 305 guys, the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. I'm actually in the traffic of the 954, which is why I pulled to the side of the road. Uh, we'll talk about Panthers today. We know you guys want Heat content too. I don't know why you want Heat content. We'll get to that maybe next week. And then we really never did the draft recap for the Dolphins either, so maybe we'll do that next week. But we're going to talk Panthers today. We're sponsored here by our friends over at Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Prize Picks, the official fantasy sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And yes, you can play the NHL on there. Not just the NBA, not just the NFL, not just MLS, not just golf, not just tennis. You can play the NHL. So you want to go over on Kachuk, Barkov, over on Bob Saves. You can do all of that at prizepicks.com. Again, use the code 5 FIV. I'm actually right outside the Panthers practice facility in Fort Lauderdale, which is across the street from my apartment. So I figured this was an appropriate place to do this. Prize Picks, again, use the code FIVE. Get your $50 today. Alex, so it's interesting. It's really hard for anybody to complain about the national perception of the Heat or the Dolphins lately, because they don't really deserve a whole bunch of attention and respect. Sort of
Agreed.
mired in mediocrity at best. And the Marlins have a 6 ERA as a team. So yeah, but the Panthers seem to have deserved more national and international respect coming off a Stanley Cup victory and adding Brad Marchand and Seth Jones, among others, than for 20 out of 26 ESPN analysts and virtually the same on the athletic side to pick Tampa. And the Panthers end up winning the series in 5 games and now play the Maple Leafs, who, again, that will be a taller task, I think, because the Maple Leafs had an excellent season. But I'm just asking, why do you think it was that nobody respected the team that just won the cup and got better?
Yeah, I can be very paranoid. And there obviously in multiple different sports have been, anti Miami and South Florida biases. The bias against the local hockey team is obvious, non-traditional market that was mired in mediocrity or worse for so many years before they got their shit together in recent years, obviously. But like in this case, I don't think it was like an anti-Panthers thing. I think what happened was the media got caught up in a couple of different narratives, Ethan. The first thing they got caught up in was, the Panthers had an unremarkable regular season. I mean, didn't exactly, and, they obviously did enough to preserve their bodies. They had some regular season injuries, but they didn't do anything crazy during the regular season. They had the opportunity to win the Atlantic, and they faded a little bit down the stretch and all that. So I think it was a recency bias more than anything. Cause 20 of those 20 of the 26 experts to pick against Florida because Tampa had home ice advantage. They had a better finish to the regular season. And then I think another part of it, we talked about this a little bit with Alex Baumgartner last week, and this was just after the first game of the series. So we didn't know the Panthers would dominate and win in 5 and everything. But like he brought up the point that they were definitely the media trying to push this narrative of Stanley Cup fatigue, right? Coming off of 2 straight Stanley Cup finals, which, it takes its toll, right? We've seen it happen to NBA teams, and hockey's even more rigorous. So just kind of wondering, can they find their playoff form after they've had these deep postseason runs the last couple of years? So I think that those were kind of the primary narratives that were working against the Panthers. And I'll say it again, Ethan, why in this case, for as paranoid as I can be about the anti-Miami stuff, I don't think this was like an anti-Panthers organization thing, because guess what? With the way Florida just dominated Tampa Bay, I was looking up the perception and some of the odds heading into this Maple Leaf series. And, I'm sure that, the media outlets in Canada are probably singing the Leafs praises and stuff. But I did check the odds. And despite the fact that the Leafs are going to have home ice advantage, the Panthers are actually minus 155 favorites to
Wow.
win this series. So
Wow.
I think they're getting some respect now. I just think they
Mm.
needed to wake people up. They needed to do what they just did in 5 games to Tampa Bay to make people remember, hey,
Yeah.
these are the same Panthers that just won a Stanley Cup. In fact, I would argue the team might even be better with who they've added. And this is the team that won the Stanley Cup last year, went to the finals the year before that. So I think that those who doubted Florida are kind of coming around now.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you mentioned their regular season position. It kind of reminds me of like Usain Bolt, like just sort of cruising into third in the Olympic trials. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh wait, he qualified. Shit, he's really fast, right? Like,
he was jogging in the qualifiers.
Right,
now
right.
He's going to sprint.
He just kind of pulled up because he didn't want to tear a hamstring, and that's how this feels. The Panthers pulled up; they didn't want to tear any hamstrings. You had the Marchand addition was late in the season. Tkachuk was out for the last couple months. Feels like he could have come back a little sooner. Ekblad was suspended. Okay, you're talking about 3 elite players, and then you add to that the Seth Jones move at the deadline, which solidified the blue line, another Zito masterclass, as they say. I can't think of another executive who not only has had a run like this, but who just deserves so much trust. It's just like, okay, Zito did, it's fine. The Heat used to be like that. That's kind of gone away. But the Dolphins haven't been like that forever. It's the opposite. The Dolphins could make a move that turns out really great, but nobody believed it at the time, right? And with the Panthers, it's just like, all right, they brought back their top 6 forwards. So
yeah.
Now you're adding to Lucerian. I can never pronounce his name, but OEL, and also Lindell. You're adding a guy who was the captain of the Boston Bruins to that group. And that's your third line. And then you've got a fifth line of guys who all played significant roles this year who can't even get on the ice. So your goalie's still really good, and your goalie just outplayed the guy that everybody was afraid of in the first round. So I think you're right. I think now they're catching on to it. Now, would it stun me if the Panthers lose this series? No, I don't know all about. I have to study up on Toronto. Obviously, I know some of their top line guys. But
right.
Could they lose a series? Hockey is weird. Okay. I mean, you can absolutely lose a series you're not supposed to lose. But the Panthers so clearly looked like the better team in the Lightning series against a team that was really good in the regular season, that I kind of am at the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this now and see where it goes. I want to talk to you about something else on the other side of this, but quickly, let's talk about All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them at allproconstructionbuilders.com or All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram. If you own a house, place of business, you got to get it fortified before hurricane season. So reach out to Danny and his team, 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. Again, they use locally made products. They'll take care of everything for you. They give you a free estimate automatically, but if you mention 5 Reasons, you also get 5.5% off your entire order. So go to All Pro Construction Builders or allproconstructionbuilders.com and talk to Danny and his team today. 305-484-4429, based in Dade County, but they also service Monroe and Broward. All right, Alex, let's get to this point now, because again, the Heat are done. The Dolphins are going to have their OTAs, but the draft is over with. The Marlins will soon fade into irrelevance. And obviously we're a little bit away from the Dolphins and the Canes, cranking up in the fall. Panthers have the floor to themselves this time completely. And they're coming off a cup. I mean, again, I'm right outside of Baptist Health right now, and they're Baptist Health Center, and they're probably going to start the watch parties, the skate and watch parties and all this sort of stuff. Do you feel anything more palpable or more palpable? Sometimes you win a championship and it's okay, well, we got one. So people kind of get a little bit more complacent about it. Or do you think the fever picks up if they beat Toronto? Or are fans here just kind of assuming the Panthers win now? It doesn't have quite the same verve that it had before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a couple of different group chats with in a group chat with friends of mine from college, and another one with friends that go all the way back to high school, who are like, South Florida sports fans, but historically pretty casual on hockey, because South Florida thing, it is what it is, and they are fully bought in, Ethan.
Yeah.
And I think it's palpable. I mean, it's probably even more palpable for you living right across the street from the training facility and all the extra buzz that comes with that, but I I really think there's been a bit of a renaissance for hockey fandom in this area. And, the original time when I first felt it was when I was, growing up, middle school age in 96, when they made the run to the Stanley Cup finals. And obviously, what they've actually accomplished with this regime beats that. They won a cup and they're, going to try to get to the finals for a third straight year. And so, no, I think people are fully bought in. And in fact, I think it helps soften the blow of what just happened to the Miami Heat. And, we don't have to worry about any more home games being scheduled for the exact same time because the Heat decided to gracefully bow out. The Heat just said, you know what, we're going to let the Panthers.
That was
great.
Well,
yeah, I mean, they lose by 30 some, and then they lose by 55. It was a graceless bow out of the South Florida landscape. But no, I feel it, and if nothing else, I just think the sustained success. When you're in a non-traditional hockey market, because the same thing happened with Tampa. I mean, there's no natural ice in Tampa either, but that has been, they started their winning a lot before Florida did. That be an established franchise. People in Tampa are hockey crazy. I think the same thing is happening with South Floridians. And so I can feel it. I feel the buzz personally.
Yeah. Gracefully bow out. Those would be like the Heat were like if the Panthers had lost 7-2 and 10-1 in 2 straight games. That's the equivalent to it. It got booed off their own ice. That would be what they did. I mean, the only equivalent I could come up with for what the Heat did was the Dolphins losing 62-7 in Jacksonville, and that wasn't even at home.
Right, but imagine doing that, and imagine doing that like twice in a row. Like you end your let's say if you win your last regular season game, you win the division, but then they lose 62-7, then they lose 62-7 in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident the Panthers aren't going to do that. So we'll have Alex Baumgartner on next week to evaluate the series. We're going to do a little more Panthers coverage here. We also we haven't really reviewed the Dolphins draft yet, so we'll probably do that during OTAs. And of course, we will pivot with the Heat, but you can get to 5 on the floor for that. I don't even have enough topics for there, so I don't know if we're going to come to here with that. Alex, we know you got to run today. We'll do a couple of episodes next week. Again, appreciate our sponsors. Prize Picks, use the code 5 FIVE, and All Pro Construction Builders, and hopefully the Panthers give us another month or so of excitement, because they're the franchise in town right now. I think everybody just needs to acknowledge that. Have a good one, everybody.